Okay, well, today I have the pleasure of talking with a new mom named Heather, and this is just a parenting question and answer. She's got a question, and hopefully I can help talk through an answer or give her some ideas on what to do. So, Heather, can you introduce at least like how old your baby is and any context that helps us as we talk about and listen to your question and talk through things?
Yeah, so my son is 6 weeks old, and mostly what we're struggling with right now is just getting him to sleep on his own.
Okay.
Um, Basically, as soon as we put him down, he might stay asleep for 20, 30 minutes, and then he'll wake up
Hmm.
crying, and then takes 2 hours from there doing all sorts of different things, and then finally just it eventually works, and he just goes to sleep. And once he's asleep, he stays asleep for 6 hours at a time, which is great. But
Oh,
just
great.
that 2 hour time frame of trying to get him to go to sleep is tough.
Right. And is this your first?
Yeah,
And do you breastfeed or formula feed or a
formula.
mix? Formula feed. Okay. And so where does he sleep?
We have him in his crib, in his
In his
room.
crib. Okay, in his own room. So really it sounds like what the struggle is like getting him down to bed, and that it takes like a insurmountably long amount of time to get him to fall asleep. And then once he falls asleep, um, he sleeps well, but it's kind of a long, laborious process of trying to get him down. Does that capture what your concern is?
Yeah, yep. And
Okay.
he also has some trouble sleeping on his own during the day too. He mostly just
Hmm.
to be held for it.
He likes to be held. And that's a totally normal thing that I hear, both that it's difficult to get babies his age, like around 4 to 6, 4 to 8 week olds to fall asleep on their own. Oftentimes they're kind of at that stage where they're starting to move, and, they're not just like this little hibernating baby that just eats and feeds. They start to wake up a little bit more. And
Hmm.
so falling asleep can be a real struggle. And then during the day, I hear that from so many parents that it's really a matter of he just likes to sleep on me. He likes to be held or cuddled and all those sort of things. So I think looking at the big picture of a child his age, what I would expect is for most babies his age to not sleep as long as he's sleeping at night. So that's great that he already does that. I mean, there's no reason that he can't sleep that way. Breast or formula fed babies can sleep 6 hour stretches without any problem, but oftentimes they don't quite sleep that long. But it is nice when you can have a reliable sense of, okay, he's probably going to go down between like 8 and 10, and it's not going to take 2 hours. We're not going to be up till midnight, because a lot of parents at between 6 and 10, 6 and 12 weeks go back to work. And so unfortunately, like, everybody needs sleep. And so if we're really struggling to know, is this going to be one of those nights where he falls asleep after 5 minutes, or is this going to be one of those nights where it takes 2 hours? That can really have a significant trajectory on the next day. Does that make sense or sound like
Yeah.
about what we're dealing with?
Yep.
And so when you feed him, like, what time does he do his last feeding?
Well, we've tried a couple different bedtimes, but
Okay.
I would say if we do the earlier one, he has the last feed in like the 8 o'clock hour. And then
Okay.
if we try the later bedtime, it's in the 9 o'clock hour. But then in that 2 hour stretch of kind of him fighting the sleep, he also shows cues of hunger, which
Right.
sometimes I think he does when he's tired. So it's hard to determine, is he just doing that because he's tired, or is he really hungry? So then
Totally.
in that 2 hour stretch, we're giving him more food as well. So
Gotcha. Just like, well, he needs something, and he won't calm down.
right.
And so is he hungry? Is he tired? I think in a lot of babies this age, there can be two different things going on. For one, a lot of babies between 4 and 8 or 9 weeks have what we would term kind of the wastebasket diagnosis of colic, where they have predictable periods of time where they're fussy in the evenings. Parents often interpret that as either they're hungry or something's wrong with them, or they have gas pains, but often it's just kind of a developmental thing that babies go through, where in the evening, it's typically a little earlier in the evening, I would say. It's usually like 5 to 8 or 9 p.m., where they just are inconsolable, and they fuss and they fuss, and you feed them and then you swaddle them and you try and hold them. And no matter what you do, they got a dry diaper, a full belly, they still are fussy. And
Mm-hmm.
so in those cases, when that's the case, then I think that the best thing to do is kind of, one, is recognize that this is a normal developmental stage. It's predictable times of day where he's fussy. It's not 24/7, but we could almost set our watch by it. And feed and then swaddle up and then carry around kind of. Those are some of the strategies that often work well at that age for colic. If it's later in the evening, then if it doesn't seem like it's colic based on how I described it, then often overtiredness will play a role too. Like once babies get too tired, like unlike adults who, like if I'm really tired, I just want to go to sleep and fall asleep right away. Babies will be so tired that they really have a hard time settling down and calming their bodies enough to fall asleep. That's something that developmentally they learn over time. So if you find that like the later feedings, it's difficult to know, especially if you wait until like the 9 o'clock to do the final feeding, that it's those are especially difficult times to actually get him to go to bed and not just kind of fuss and whine for 2 hours and have a real hard time calming down. And is he hungry? Should we feed him again? Should we swaddle him? Is his diaper wet? All those sort of things kind of start to come into play, and it just turns into the cycle. My suggestion would be to try an earlier bedtime. And I don't think that it would hurt to try doing, instead of that last feed at 8 p.m., pushing it back to 7:30 or 7, and trying to get him fed, maybe even, stretching the time between 5 to 7 so that he's entertained, or you're carrying him around or something like that. So you can stretch that feeding around the 7 o'clock hour a little bit later and have that be the final feeding, and see how that works and see how much time you get. Now, I don't think he's going to sleep all night doing that, but I think that you might find that, okay, he was so tired when we were putting him down at 8 or 9 p.m. that when we pushed the bedtime earlier, he actually fell asleep more easily and slept for longer stretches. He woke up once or twice overnight, and then he was more refreshed and ready for the day in the morning. So I think that is often the case when they're overtired and fighting sleep, that they are just really struggling for that calming down, that's something that they really can't do until they're just totally pooped and exhausted or full of food because you fed them like 4 times because you think they must be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
The other suggestion that I would have is with that last feeding. I mean, I think at this age, swaddling is really helpful. Do you swaddle him?
Yeah, we've tried the Velcro swaddles, and he does okay with those. It seems like maybe he does best with the Love to Dream with his arms up, but
okay,
I don't know.
I really like at the 6-week age still doing arms down at the side, because they're kind of still in that 4th trimester where the world kind of rocks their world, and they will flail their arms around, and that will wake them up and stir them from sleep, and hit themselves in the face because they don't have that great of control over their arms and legs. And so I think what I would try to do is tonight for his last feeding, whatever time you decide to do that at, what I would do is change his diaper, swaddle him up like he's going to go down for bed with his arms down at his side, and then feed him while swaddled, cuddle him until he falls asleep, and then put him down in his crib. At this age, it's totally fine to feed your baby to sleep. It's totally fine to cuddle your baby or stick your finger in their mouth or a pacifier in their mouth to help them get to sleep, because I don't expect babies his age to just go to sleep on their own. Like I wouldn't expect a 6-week-old ever. I mean, you might occasionally get the random time where they're just tired and the timing worked out, but I wouldn't expect on a regular basis for a baby this age to reliably go down awake to sleep. So usually they're fed or cuddled or something like that. But if you can make the transition from feeding to crib as easy as possible by not having to rile him up and mess with him to change his diaper and swaddle, then I think you might have more success with getting him down without that big fighting sleep stuff that you guys have been dealing with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Something else we've been doing as part of his bedtime routine is a bath before doing everything that you just talked about. I don't know if we should continue doing that. I guess I'm not sure if I think it's been helping or not.
Well, I think the nice thing is, he doesn't get that dirty. It's not like he's playing outside. So if you want to take a few days off from bath and see if that makes a difference, or see if that really does help him calm down, because for a lot of babies, that is kind of part of the cue. Like, this is a big different thing. I haven't been doing this all day, and I'm in the tub and it's cold and then it's warm and all those different things. But it kind of cues them that, okay, we're preparing for bedtime. Just like reading a story with a child helps them to calm down and prepare for bedtime. Bath time does that for some kids too. So I think you could explore, test it both ways and see, give them a bath every night for a week and then give them a bath like once a week. and see if there's something that you can find that works best for him or that he responds best to. As the
Okay.
bath giver in our house, I always try and stretch the days between baths. So bathing has never really been a part of our sleep routines because I try and avoid doing it as much as I can. Some people
Yeah.
really like baths. Some people like giving baths. And so in those cases, it's totally fine to do a bath.
Okay. And then so during the day,
Yeah,
when we tried to work on him taking naps on his own, like we'll hold him and rock him to sleep, and then just continuously try to lay him down in his crib. And as soon as he hits the crib, he wakes up and starts fussing.
right.
Um, so I don't know, I guess, what to do with that either.
During the day, I
Just
think
keep
you could take
trying.
I no, well, keep trying, yes, but I think you could take the same approach. And if you're like, okay, I want him to take a nice nap now, I'm going to swaddle him and then feed him and then lay him down. I would try that during the day too, and you might see that he consolidates naps then, and then take instead of taking like a 5 or 20 minute nap, then he'll take a couple hour long naps throughout the day. Um, but if you try that technique too of swaddling and then feeding, that you might have more success. It's not as difficult, I don't think, with babies that are bottle fed to swaddle. Sometimes it's kind of difficult or hot to swaddle a baby and then breastfeed them. So if we're doing bottles, then that makes it easier, but I think you can probably do it either way, especially if you have like a Velcro swaddle with a
Okay.
breastfed baby. Those Velcro swaddles take a lot of the work and finesse out of getting them swaddled. So
Hmm. And when I do a feeding during the day with him swaddled, because I want him to nap after, should I be
right.
doing it like in our living room where it's light and the TV's on, or should I go in his room where it's quiet and dark like I would with bedtime?
I think during the day it's better to get lighter naps, meaning that you could do them like out in an open area, like you said, with light and background noise and stuff like that. And you can either then put him down in his crib to sleep, or you can, put him on the floor or in a safe sleeping space out, in the living room or wherever you're at.
Hmm.
Sounds
Okay.
like you have dogs, so I don't know if you want to
Yes,
keep him on the
I do.
floor with all the dogs would probably wake him up.
Yeah, they do.
Does
Okay.
that sound good?
Yeah, it does. With him showing cues of hunger when we're
Hmm.
having that stretch at night, trying to get him to go to sleep. I mean, I guess if I'm trying everything else and it doesn't seem to be working, is then resorting to giving him some more food okay to be doing? I mean, honestly, sometimes in this 2 hour stretch of getting him to go to sleep, he might get like 8 to 9 ounces, which seems like an awful lot.
Yeah, that does seem like a lot. I mean, I don't think it'll hurt him. I think he'll tell you with having a huge spit up if you fed him too much. But
Mm-hmm.
if that helps to soothe him, or if you can swaddle him up and stick a pacifier or your finger or something like that in his mouth, then often that's enough to get them to help their brains calm down too.
Okay. And then I feel like he has a lot of gas too.
Yeah,
So, like when we do our bedtime routine, and then he's pretty much like falling asleep or completely asleep by the time we finish feeding and burping and then lay him down. And that first time laying him down is almost always successful.
right,
But then he only stays asleep for like 20 or 30 minutes. And then we go in and get him because he's crying. And
right.
it pretty much as soon as we pick him up, or we'll hear it while he's still laying there, he'll either fart or we'll pick him up and he'll burp. It's like maybe that gas is waking him up. I
Right.
don't know what we could do about that.
I mean, definitely, as far as burping goes, trying to get a good burp out before that final feeding if you can. But sometimes it does, like their stomachs are just sensitive and they're sensitive to their stomachs. And so they will kind of get stirred from that. And if you can go in and comfort him, swaddle him back up if he's come unswaddled, or, carry him around a little bit and get him back to sleep, then usually that works pretty well. If you've helped them to calm down and then just kind of have those hiccups in the road where they have some gas that wakes them up. And usually that passes by 2 to 3 months. So that usually isn't a long-term thing. But at this age, kind of along the same lines as colic, that can definitely be something that interferes with getting good, restful, continuous sleep.
Okay. Because I've also considered switching his formula. He's on the Similac Pro Sensitive.
Sure.
And I guess I don't know if the gas that he's having is a sign that he needs a different formula. Sometimes he'll even wake up from a nap, like if I'm holding him, he'll
Hmm.
wake up from the nap crying, I think because the gas is hurting him.
Yeah. I don't think that switching formulas typically helps if it's like just gas sort of pains and not like spitting up or having, terrible fussiness all day long. I don't typically think that formula changes make a huge difference. I think it's just a kind of a maturation of their gut that has to occur for them to be less sensitive to gas. So
Okay.
any formula that you would switch to would probably have the same sort of results, or the natural history would be that when he was 7 weeks old, this was going to kind of start to resolve anyways. We switched formula at 6 weeks old. It got better. Who knows what the culprit was? But if otherwise he's tolerating that pretty well, then I would probably just stick with that.
Okay. All right. That sounds
Well,
good.
I think the biggest thing to know too about him is that he's going to constantly change. And the fact that he's got these good 6 hour stretches at night is pretty darn good. I'm sure there's some people that are going to be watching this video that will be a little bit jealous of that long of a sleep stretch, but it is hard, and it changes so quickly and so much that it takes some time and patience to see the results. And then by the time you get things figured out, they change again, or, then he's rolling over in his crib. And then he's, all the different things that come up as babies change in age. So my advice would be to just stick with it and try some of these strategies, and know that in 2 weeks, you might not have those questions anymore regardless, because you got a whole new set. So.
Yeah. Well, and I did just think of one other thing as you were talking here. Then once he does go to sleep and gets that long stretch, I watch him on the monitor in my room, and I could put him to sleep like more towards the top of his crib, and by the end of that 6 hour stretch, he will have fidgeted so much he's at the bottom of his crib. Is that normal?
That's totally normal. Yep. I always go in like when our babies are real young, and I'm like, how did they move? How did that happen? But they do. They fidget and they move themselves around, and that's totally fine. And that's why sleeping on his back is important, and having nothing else in the crib. Because even if you lay him on one side of the crib, even a 6-week-old tiny little baby that doesn't move much on their own, they can move quite a bit. And so move down towards, if there's pillows or blankets or bumpers or something like that in the crib. That's why it's good to have nothing in the crib, because then you don't have to worry. As much as he wiggles or squirms, all of the crib is safe, and not just the left side or not just the right side. And all of those things are out of the way, so that there's no way that it could cause any trouble with him as he moves throughout the night.
Okay.
And same rule applies when he, in 2 months from now or 3 months from now, when you're asking, well, what do I do because he rolled over in his crib? He's in a safe sleep setting. So it's totally fine to just leave a baby that rolls over on their own in a safe sleep setting and let them sleep. You don't have to like duct tape them down. Parents ask me about that, or Velcro them to their crib. Just leave them in a safe sleep setting always, and then you'll never have to worry if they roll over on their own. That's totally cool. That's a good time to stop swaddling. But overall, once they start rolling over, oftentimes babies like to sleep better, and they sleep with their butts in the air, and that's totally normal. And you'll see that in the next 3 to 5 months, I'm sure.
Okay, that's good to know.
Well, great to chat today, and good luck. Keep up the good work, and maybe comment in the group. I'm going to post this video and comment in the group how things are going as we move forward. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You bet. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye, Heather. Thanks for watching. I create lots of content. I love connecting with my audience over video and audio. So if you want to catch all the videos that I put out, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode. Hit the thumbs up button, share with a friend, and if you have a question that you'd like me to cover, you can just text me. It's 402-256-0768. And if you'd like to watch another video, there you go. Keep up the good work and have a good day.